Hi, fifth graders. So today our WALT is we are learning to estimate the product of a whole number and a decimal. Please pause the video and write the WALT and the date in your notebooks. So there are two ways that you can estimate finding the product of a whole number and a decimal. The first way we'll talk about is rounding, and then we'll also talk about compatible numbers. But there are just a couple things to think about when rounding or using compatible numbers to find your answers. They both work. You can estimate both ways, but you want to think, is it easy to solve when using these things? Can you pretty much do it in your head? And also, you want to try to get as close as you can to your answer. So we're going to do this same problem both ways, and then we'll talk a little bit about which one you think would be more effective. So rounding, if I look at this number 242, and I want to round it maybe to the nearest hundreds place, I would round it to the number 200. And then this number 43 and 7/10, if I want to round this, I would round it to 40, nearest tens place. So now this answer would be 8,000. And I know this because you notice there's, 4 times 2 is 8, and then there's 3 zeros in the problem. So we make sure that we have those 3 zeros in the answer as well. This problem is an underestimate of the actual answer. And then this number, I'm going to make that number 40 again. Okay. If I multiply it, 25 times 4 is 100. We know that. And then there's 2 zeros, so you add the 2 zeros. And I get the number 10,000. Which estimate do you think is closer to the answer? When I look at these two, I immediately think that this estimate would be closer to my answer. Because when I look at the numbers in the original problem, I feel like I did not change these numbers very much. So the actual answer is, I believe it's about 10,500 something. So this one is definitely closer to my actual answer. And I think in this case, using compatible numbers would help to have a better and closer estimate. So now what you can do, if you feel very comfortable rounding and using compatible numbers, you can get started on our guided practice and the independent practice. And the numbers are on the board. If you feel like you'd like to go over a couple more problems with me, what you can do is we'll start the guided practice together. So you can just stay tuned and we'll start the guided practice here on the video. Okay, so let's get started with the guided practice. We'll start with number 3 of the guided practice, and the problem is this. So it's 87 hundredths times 112. So I want you to look at this, and I think that there are a few correct answers. I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about maybe what I would do. I also, my first thought is to make this 1. But then I think a little bit that that's, value-wise, pretty far away from this original number. Then I'm looking at this number, and I also could make this number 100, by rounding. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to round this number to the 10th place. And then I'm going to round this to 100. Because we just talked about how to solve problems similar to these and how we have to move the decimal over, correct? When we're multiplying by powers of 10. In this case, this would be either 10 to the second power, or we wrote it out and it's 100. So what I would do is I'll just rewrite this 0.9, and now I'm going to move the decimal over 1. And remember, 2 zeros, so I move the decimal over 2 places. And the value of this number is getting larger, So it would be 90, because we don't need this 0 in the answer. Because my decimal is over here, and now this is a whole number. So 90 would be my answer. So 9 tenths times 100 is 90. The other way, you could always just round that to 1 and do 1 times 112, which is 112. But this estimate is actually closer to the correct answer. I think it could be a better estimate. So remember, this is number 3 on our guided practice. At the problems, and I'm looking at number 5. I want you to just pause the video and try number 5 on your own, because it's rather simple. And then we're going to try number 7 together as our last one. So, number 7 in the guided practice. 33 5/100 times 200 equals. So I'm looking at this, and I could do a couple things. I could round this to 30 and then multiply it by 200. I also think I could round this, or I'm sorry, I could use compatible numbers and just keep this as 33, because I know that 33 times 200, I know what that equals, because I can multiply in my head 33 times 2. So 33 times 2 is 66, and then I have my 2 zeros. So my best estimate with this problem, this multiplication problem, would be 6,600. I would also accept if you rounded it to 30 and then multiplied by 200. I would accept 6,000 as an estimate as well. Okay. So today, I want you to work on the independent problems that are on the board, and also make sure that you look at number 15. 15 is a little bit tricky, so we're going to go over 15 together at the end of the lesson, at the end of independent time today. And I want you to make sure that you're writing down how I wrote down my estimations and those problems right there. I want you to write them as well, because there can be a variety of different answers, as you see, and they're acceptable as long as you can explain your thinking. Okay, so get started.